NBC will be on the air with the latest war news at the beginning of every program, day and night. The British radio, heard by NBC, reports that the Sultan of one of the little Malay states has handed control of his country right over to the British to make it easier to repel the Japanese. A British advisor will sit with the Sultan of Kelantan from now until the war is all over.
During World War II, radio became a tool for patriotism as ratings continued to soar.
The Johnson Wax Program with Fibber McGee and Molly.
There were radios for the home, for the go, and for the car. And those radios played a growing number of stations. Sponsored programs on the big networks were heavily involved in leading the charge. 2 days after the attack on Pearl Harbor and Manilla, one of NBC's highest-rated situation comedies, Fibber McGee and Molly, was on the air. In this episode called I Can Get It For You Wholesale, Fibber knows a way to get all Christmas-time items for 40% off. Immediately, his friends in Wistful Vista descend upon Fibber and Molly's home with requests.
By the way, do you know where I can buy a large globe of the world for my office?
Why, sure, Latrevious. I can get you one wholesale. How much you want to pay for a good globe?
Oh, it doesn't matter much, McGee. As long as I get a good one. Things are happening so fast these days, I like to keep informed.
You want a globe with Japan on it, Mr. Mayor?
Why, certainly.
Well, then you better get one quick.
The war became a central topic in everyone's life. Many scripts were written which centered around the war itself. Breaking news would take the highest priority, and radio performers had to be ready for a news cutaway at all moments. Actress Fran Carlon explains.
I was on one called This Changing World. It was a very poignant story, and the husband was sent overseas, and then a woman's trying to adapt herself to a business life and a life alone. They tried to do several shows like that. Technically, we went through some amazing kind of things because we were always on standby for news, so that as the actors brought numerous colored pencils to the studio because you would have first cut, second cut, and third cut as to that means, the cut in the script, as to what kind of an emergency broadcast might be coming on. While you were trying to emote, you would look into the control room and the director would be standing there with one finger up, which meant take the first cut and that's all you need. And you really had to have eyes in the side of your head in radio.
Tonight, the man behind the gun is a woman. Columbia Broadcasting System presents The Man Behind the Gun, dedicated to the fighting men and women of the United States and the United Nations, and broadcast in the hope that these authentic accounts of men and women at war will bring you a better understanding of the job being done by our fighting forces everywhere in the world, and the job we have to do to keep them fighting.
In October of 1942, CBS launched The Man Behind the Gun, dedicated to the fighting men of the United States and the United Nations. The stories were based around fact, but the names were all fictitious. William N. Robson directed. Bob Dryden was one of the principal New York actors on the series.
It was directed by a great director of his day, William N. Robson. And every effort that CBS could put into the production of a radio show was put into the production of that one. It was fantastic. None of us had had any experience with the way sound was done on this show. If the locale was on deck of a destroyer, the sound effects speakers surrounded the performing area so that the actors, in terms of sound, were completely involved. And you could really imagine with no trouble at all that you were in the North Atlantic.
2, 8, 5.
It wasn't a show done from a control room. William N. Robson remembered that when the USS Boise limped into the Philadelphia Navy Yard, all shot up from the Battle of the Coral Sea in May of 1942, they went down there to interview the crew and examine the ship. The more research they did, the more accurate they could make the series.
You open the flap of your tent and look up at the sky. But the fading day is...
What's happened during these last few hours, not one of us will ever forget. How could you forget? You sat up all night by the radio and heard the bulletins, the flashes, the voices coming across from England, the commentators, the pilots returning from their greatest of all missions, newsboys yelling in the street, and it seemed that one world was ending and a new world beginning. You sat there and dawn began to sneak in, and you thought of the hundreds of thousands of kids you'd seen in camps the past 2 or 3 years. The kids who scream and whistle when they hear a gag in a song. God bless those kids across the English Channel.
Stars frequently made themselves available for the war effort. Bob Hope was noted for his many USO shows.
Knows it really spells hell. It's the front porch of Tokyo with a death's head on the welcome mat. It's volcanic dust that bites the lungs, sulfur smoke that burns them, hot lava and hot lead. The world's toughest fight. By comparison to Iwo, 2 days in the real hell would be like a weekend at Lake Arrowhead. You know, it took Betsy Ross just a bit of cotton bunting to make the first American flag. And, mister, let's never forget what it's taken the Marine Corps to hoist that bit of bunting on Iwo Jima. Good night, fellas.
And I remember a really fabulous show during the war that originated in Hollywood, where most of the big stars did their own shows. It was called Command Performance, and GIs would write in and ask for something like, I would like to hear Rita Hayworth sigh. So the MC, who might be Orson Welles or Bob Hope, would say, and now by Command Performance, Miss Rita Hayworth will sigh for Private Joe Smith in Sicily. And she'd get up to the microphone and she'd go, And thank you, Miss Rita Hayworth. And she'd step down.
The show comedian Gary Moore was referring to, Command Performance, took to the airwaves on March 1st, 1941, over a special service division of the War Department called the Armed Forces Radio Service. Loaded by time, the program had an estimated weekly budget of $75,000. This episode, broadcast on February 15, 1945, was a musical spoof called Dick Tracy in B-flat.
Okay there, gang. This is Harry Bonzell reminding you that it's time to join us once again for another session dedicated to answering your requests to Command Performance, Armed Forces Radio, Los Angeles, USA. Now, it's come to our attention that a lot of you guys have been reading comic books while our shows are on. Now, we realize that you men and women in the Army, Navy, Coast Guard, and Marines can do exactly as you please at any time. But Command Performance hates to lose any listeners. We're really very jealous that way. So for you guys who like comic strips, tonight we're going to devote our entire time to a real super-duper two-fisted He-Man thriller. One of your real big favorites, Dick Tracy. I think Command Performance has assembled the greatest cast of honest Joes, thieves, murderers, and cutthroats in radio history. Here they are in the order of their appearance. No applause, please. Dick Tracy. Mr. Bing Crosby. Tess Trueheart. Miss Dinah Shore. Oh, Judge Hooper. That's me. The police chief, Mr. Jerry Colonna. Flat Top, Mr. Robert Hope. Vitamin Flintheart, Mr. Frank Morgan. The Summer Sisters, Miss Andrew Sisters. The Mole, Mr. James Durante, Esquire. Little Snowflake, Miss Judy Garland. Shaky, Master Frankie Sinatra. Gravel Gertie, Miss Cass Daly. And so it's on with the first comic strip operetta of all time, Dick Tracy in B-flat, or, for goodness sakes, isn't he ever going to marry Tess Trueheart? Ready, maestro. Overture.
Lucky Strike Green has gone to war.
It's 8:30. 8:30.
It's 8:30, New York time. Time to wake up America and stump the experts.
Lucky Strike Green has gone to war.
Each week at this time, Lucky Strike gives you a chance to test your wits against those of 4 super wits. You provide the questions, and our experts try to answer them. Remember, for every question used, Lucky Strike will give you not only $10 in war stamps, but a set of the 12-volume Britannica Junior Encyclopedia. If the question is muffed, you get the Junior Britannica, plus a $50 war bond, plus a 24-volume set of the regular Encyclopedia Britannica. Send your questions to Information Please, 480 Lexington Avenue, New York City.
Lucky Strike Green has gone to war.
David Sarnoff, too, went to war. He served on General Eisenhower's communications staff, arranging expanded radio circuits for NBC to transmit news from the invasion of France in June of 1944. In France, Sarnoff arranged for the restoration of the Nazi-destroyed station Radio France and oversaw the construction of a radio transmitter powerful enough to reach all of the Allied forces in Europe, called Radio Free Europe. In recognition for his achievements, Sarnoff was decorated with the Legion of Merit on October 11, 1944.
This is your FBI.
Public safety was also an important theme for radio drama during the war. In November of 1944, CBS launched The FBI in Peace and War, sponsored by Lava Soap. And in April of 1945, ABC launched This Is Your FBI, sponsored by the Equitable Life Assurance Society. The first episode was entitled Espionage.
For National Security, and the Equitable Society for Financial Security. These two great institutions are dedicated to the protection of you, your home,
Less than a month later,
and your country.
Adolf Hitler committed suicide. Germany officially surrendered on May 8th.
The Allied armies, through sacrifice and devotion, and with God's help, have wrung from Germany a final and unconditional surrender.
Japan officially surrendered on August 14th after atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. American servicemen and women were heading home. The war was finally over, just in time for the end of summer.
Some of us keep our nose to the grindstone, our ear to the ground, an eye to the future.
Huh?
Television's just around the corner, you know.
Oh, Sam.
Come here, sweetheart. You look lovely in it. Come here. Have a wonderful time.
Oh, Sam.